Living rurally means you're going to wind up doing a lot more stuff for yourself. And whether or not you're excited about that, these are the 5 tools that I find myself reaching for quite a bit. So the rural lifestyle pretty much is going to come with the demand for self-sufficiency to some degree. Response times from emergency services are slower. It takes longer to drive anywhere to get supplies and get the things that you need. And the stores and amenities and things that we do have available here to us are just not always open when you need them. And that comes with weekends and evenings, holidays, things like that. You're just going to have to be a little bit more self-reliant. So these tools I'm going to talk about pretty much just become necessities in a lot of ways. Not necessarily emergency tools, every single one of them, but absolutely necessities. But before we get into the first one, let me know down in the comments below which one you use the most, or if I didn't even mention your most used tool on the list. So not in any particular order, but the first thing on my list is a chainsaw. This is my MS-251. It's going to do a variety of tasks for you. I'm going to speak in a way that does not really apply to me, that I know that probably applies to most of the rest of the country, but storm cleanup. If you're living out amongst the trees, you're going to have to clean up after storms. You're probably going to have to cut trees out of the road if you live far enough out into the boonies. It's pretty much just going to be a tool that if you are a large property owner of any size really, that you're going to wind up using. And then for a lot of us, this is the one where it really applies to me, is cutting firewood. This pretty much, along with the 3 or 4 or 5 other, I guess 4 other saws I own, keep us warm all winter long. Going out, we take them out and we go out and cut firewood in the national forest, and we bring all that firewood home, and it keeps us warm all winter. So yes, I live in the West. Yes, I live in northeastern Arizona, but it gets pretty cold here. It freezes. It gets well below freezing pretty much every single night of the winter. And these things keep us warm all winter long because propane is extremely expensive, and that's my only heating option for what's currently equipped on my house. We do not have natural gas in my area, and doing like an electric heat pump isn't really feasible because it would cost me so much to get it installed into my home right now. So I'm using what I've got, and of course, I just really like doing firewood. It's kind of a hobby that does get old pretty quick, but this chainsaw is one of those tools that we just really have to have based on the lifestyle we live. I recently recall my aunt who lives in the Phoenix area mentioning that she feels like when she comes up into our rural area that the power goes off up here a lot more often than it ever does in specifically Mesa where she lives. That's absolutely one of the things that happens with rural living, is the electricity just seems to be slightly more unreliable. And so you may want to pick up a generator. And it's not just for that. Admittedly, I've never used it in an emergency. Our power goes off, several times a year for a few hours at a time, and it's generally not that big of a deal. From an emergency aspect, I haven't needed this generator yet, but it would definitely come in handy if/when that time comes. Now, really, just the more regular reason for it is if you have a large property that you can't just run extension cords all over and just don't have access to power everywhere, like I do, as small as it is, it's only about 3/4 of an acre. You're going to want to be able to use a generator to power tools and all kinds of things that you need all over your property. If you're even any bigger than me, I can't imagine being able to get a whole lot of projects done without a generator because you just need power tools in a lot of places where there isn't electricity. I'll give you an example. I used to have a 10-acre property that was definitely out of town, way out of town on its own, and I needed a jackhammer because I had so much rock in order to start placing my fence posts in. And there was just no other way around not having a generator. Luckily, I already had it because I purchased it in a parking lot sale and got it for pretty darn cheap. But I've also used it here in my much smaller, more realistic little homestead type property. I've used it to weld on the far edges of the property where I don't have the length, let alone what I want to use an extension cord to weld that long. So there's just going to be several things that you may want to wind up picking up a generator for if you're living this lifestyle. So my third tool that you're probably inevitably going to want to pick up is a welder. Now, I've used the welder for 2 different purposes. I've repaired quite a few things that have really legitimately needed repaired, and I've built some cool stuff just because I can. Something to keep in mind with a welder is that you don't have to be the greatest welder on earth. You don't have to go to school to learn to weld to do just some of the basic things that you need to do and some of the basic repairs. Now, I'm not saying go out, buy a 120 volt welder, weld together a trailer and haul it across the country with a tractor on the back of it or anything like that. But there are a lot of things that you're gonna be able to just weld together that really aren't that big of a deal. And I'm also not someone that's gonna say, you know, you don't have to have pretty welds, but the better a weld looks, more often, the better that weld is gonna hold. So it definitely would be worth your time to get a little bit of experience, learn how to use one, but it's really not that difficult, especially in my opinion, to learn flux core welding. It's been said that it's like the hot glue gun of the welding world, and I get where that saying comes from, because to do a decent job, it's really not that hard. I am standing in a building that is partially made out of wood and sheet metal, but I definitely welded it together, the main frame of it together. So there's going to be all kinds of different things that you're going to find that you need to weld, and maybe that just simply you want to make because you can or have a welder. Now, speaking of tools that you don't really need until you really need them, a come-along. I've got 2 of them here. This is my 4th tool. You can pick them up really, really cheap from places like Harbor Freight and of course Amazon. There'll be an affiliate link to one on Amazon in the description below should you decide to pick one up. Now, admittedly, these 2 come-alongs I've not really used that much. I'll tell you the main thing that I've used them for, and that is butchering animals. I butchered a old range cow a few years ago and got a ton of hamburger out of it. And we use these come-alongs to hoist that thing in the air and gut it and skin it and do everything that we need to do, quarter it out, so that we could process that animal the next day. So come-alongs are gonna come in handy for doing that. They're also gonna come in handy for pulling vehicles out of stuck mud, possibly. There's just a dozen different ways that you could use a come-along, and for the money that they cost, it's just really not worth the risk of not having one, if that makes sense. They're really inexpensive. They're basically a power-free winch. So they're super versatile little tools that you're gonna wind up finding a few things here and there that you're gonna want to have one for. One of the main things people use them for that I just haven't yet because of the type of fencing I have around here is fencing. People use them to tension fencing. So if you have any intention of putting in some fencing, you're gonna wanna come along. Now, this last tool is not gonna come at any surprise to anybody because probably even most suburban homeowners have this tool, and that's simply a wheelbarrow. I use a wheelbarrow for everything. Weekly basis, probably multiple times a week do I use a wheelbarrow. I haul trash in it. We haul firewood in it all winter long, at least twice a week to the house from our firewood pile. We haul soil, manure, all kinds of different things, fertilizer. We just haul heavy stuff in them simply because it's an easier way to move heavy things. So wheelbarrows are just absolutely an indispensable tool on really any size property, even small ones. And if you're doing the rural living thing, if you're gardening, anything like that, you're going to inevitably want to pick up a wheelbarrow. So in closing, these tools aren't flashy, but they're just things that you're gonna be reaching for and using, maybe even a lot more than you might think. Don't forget to let me know in the comments below what you use the most or what I forgot from this list. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you in the next video.